Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us in this latest meeting of our three-part series on Israeli civil society during the war. Um, Here at the Schusterman Center, um, we learned, we heard just a few moments ago um, reports of the passing of our really beloved former colleague, former director, Rabbi Professor David Ellenson. It's all very new and all very shocking, but he was a magnificent scholar and wonderful human being, and sort of can't not mention him as we um, start our meeting here and our conversation today. Our guest today, and who we're thrilled to be having, is Rabbi Yael Vurgan. She is the rabbi of the Sha'ar HaNegev, the regional council near Gaza, that was the site of much of the massacres of October 7th. And Yael, I mean, you'll hear a little bit more about her, but in addition to her rabbinical work and her academic work, she has for years been a vital and active participant in Israeli civil society and groups working for peace and trying to improve Israeli-Palestinian relations. And she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience and passion to this work. Also, none of this would be happening without my wonderful colleagues in the Schusterman Center. Dr. Shana Weiss will be sort of harvesting the questions that you all will be putting in the chat, so that we could hear what you all are thinking and answer some of your questions. And thanks as always to my other colleagues, Ming-Chi and Karen, without whom these meetings would not be possible. And so, Yael, you and we've known each other for a while, but still not everyone listening to us has had the pleasure. So could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and because we are talking about civil society in Israel, the different sectors of Israeli society and organizations and so forth that you've been involved with up to the recent past.
Thank you very much, Yehudah, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. It's been really many things happened in the last 2 months, and so it's good for me to be able to share with you my thoughts and feelings and experiences, and also to use this session to even more process the things that we've been going through. And thank you, Yehudah, for also introducing the fact that I have different aspects in my work and my personality that I have to live with all of them together. And I will explain a little later what this demands of me in these days. But I will go back and tell you that I grew up in a secular Israeli family in the city of Rishon LeZion. It's in the Tel Aviv area. And you should know that I never thought I would be a rabbi when I grew up, because it was not even a known option for me. The Israeli education system is so segregated. So if you grow up in a secular environment and city and neighborhood, you will probably never meet religious kids because we don't study together. There is a different system for people living in a religious way of life and for people living in a secular way of life. So, and I didn't have religious people in my family. So all the idea of Judaism as a religion and the depth and the beauty and the richness of it never occurred to me until I started my army service right after high school. And that was the first opportunity for me to really meet people who grew up in a different Jewish manner and way than I did. And I even became very close to some religious people during my service, and that really opened up a whole new world for me. And when I was released from the army, I went to study Jewish studies, which really surprised all my family and friends. Nobody understood why am I going to study Jewish studies. But I was kind of um, drawn into this spiritual richness and text and rituals, and everything looked so charming to me, and I really really wanted to learn it, to go deeper into it. And so the years after, let's say in my 20s, I was really busy requiring a lot of Jewish studies, which I did not have in high school, because again, in secular education, you don't get a lot of Jewish studies, and I was really curious, and I went ahead and I learned in all different academic and non-academic frameworks, and I even spent 2 years in the States in the middle of my 20s, and for the first time in my life, I got exposed to liberal Jewish streams, because when I grew up in the 80s in Israel, I thought that you could only be Orthodox or secular, and these are the options. And I didn't know anything about, the fact that you can actually choose from many, many different ways to live meaningful Jewish life. And I didn't know liberal streams, but I got to know them in the States, and later on, going back to Israel, I started also experiencing different communities and different kind of services and Jewish life. And much later on, I found myself joining the rabbinic school of the Israeli Reform movement, and that's it, actually.
In recent years, right, you have been the rabbi of the Sha'ar HaNegev regional community, right? Now,
Right.
ordinarily, well, I mean, please tell us a bit about that, and sort of what the organization is, what's it like being the rabbi of a number of these communities, and also very crucially, we generally, these are, to the best of our knowledge, like secular kibbutzim, right? And historically tied to the labor movement, and with a very high number of people who are deeply identified with the Israeli left. And we don't usually think of these sorts of kibbutzim as needing a rabbi of any kind, reform or otherwise. So could you please tell us a bit more about that, and more broadly about the kind of spiritual life and community that developed in these kibbutzim and around them up to now in recent years?
Yes, so again, I got to the rabbinic career a very late stage in my life. So it was 5 years ago, exactly 5 years ago, I was ordained and got the job of being the regional rabbi of Sha'ar HaNegev. And I want to use the next few minutes to explain a little bit what it's all about. So I'm sharing this with you now. All right, is it okay? Okay. So, first of all, you have to understand that a regional community is nothing like we think of a congregation in a way, maybe in the States, right? Because congregations, religious Jewish congregations, it doesn't matter which stream, but it's always around a synagogue, and it always has a place which is usually the synagogue that is the center of this congregation. And my congregation is actually built of a region, of an area with with 10 kibbutzim and one moshav, so 11 places, 11 communities actually, small communities. And so even just that makes it really a completely different model of rabbinate, of
Mhm.
community
Interesting.
leadership. I put here the logos, so I wanted to explain a little bit about the area so you get to know it. So on the right here is the community logo. It was there before I started. I didn't design it, but you should understand it says Kehilat Sha'ar HaNegev, the Sha'ar HaNegev community.
Right, and
And
Shar
there's
HaNegev
this
literally means gateway to the Negev, right?
exactly. And that's because it's in the northwest part of the Negev, which is the big desert in the south of Israel. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's the gate, meaning it's like the beginning of the Negev, right? It's not deep down
Mm-hmm.
in the south, it's somewhere between the center of Israel and the south of Israel. And you see this red flower, Yehudah, I don't know how you call this in English. Uh,
I think they're
the
called
kalanit.
cyclamen. Yeah, I think in English they're called cyclamens, Cyclamen,
Mm.
kalaniot in Hebrew.
Okay, so I'll tell you in a minute about this red flower, but it's a symbol of the area. In the middle, right here, you see the logo of the municipality, the regional municipality of Sha'ar HaNegev. You can see a settlement like a kibbutz with a guarding tower, and you can see the field because this area is a country area with a lot of agriculture. It's actually got to have this. A name, like a nickname. It's the bread basket of Israel because there's a lot of wheat growing and potato growing. And so the fields are a main part of the area. And on the left is the logo of the Israeli Reform Movement. And so the Israeli Reform Movement and the municipality of Sha'ar HaNegev was had many years cooperation before even I started. There was another rabbi. It's like
So if we
a
could please
decade.
just translate, it's interesting. The logo, it on the top it says Hatznua HaReformit, the Reform Movement, and then the bottom line is Yahadut Mitkademet B'Yisrael, which I guess we would translate as progressive Judaism in Israel.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I think, you know, and it actually looks a little bit like a Chanukiah, a menorah, right? And also this circle of being together. Um, and and so the red flower, the red color is central in Sha'ar HaNegev because in the winter, in the month of February, this is what it looks like. And and there is a big festival every year in February. It's called Darom Adom, the Red South, and people from all of Israel come to see those flowers all over the place. But red color also has a negative meaning because the alarm that goes on when there is rocket attack is called Tseva Adom, red color. I do not know why, but so Tseva Adom is red color is the alert when you have to go to
And,
the safe
and also
room.
I see one of our participants in the seminar, yes, pointed out, and several that it's that these are, that I was not entirely accurate, and these are poppies or alpine poppies. And we know
Yes.
in literature, poppies have all kinds of associations, tragic
So the
associations.
residents of Sha'ar HaNegev, there are about almost 10,000 residents in those 11 different settlements.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will use the language saying like the good red and the bad red. Okay, so this is the good red, and I told
Mm-hmm.
you about the bad one. And before I tell you a little more about my work, I want to dedicate this study to the
Yes.
memory of a very, very dear person. This is Ophir Liebstein. He was the mayor of the region for the whole 5 years. We actually started working in the region together. He became the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Kfar Aza. And he was one of the first people to be murdered while going out of his house in the kibbutz of Kfar Aza to
Mm-hmm.
protect the people of the kibbutz the
Yes.
minute they knew that there were terrorists in the kibbutz.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first things I heard was him being murdered, and I'm really here heartbroken. Sha'ar HaNegev altogether has 78 victims that were murdered. Of course, many wounded, and a few
And
dozens
also
of
my
kidnapped
understanding,
people.
right, Ophir, and there was a very moving obituary about him in The Economist, is somebody who spent years dedicating his life precisely to helping Palestinians, helping the people of Gaza. Am I right about that?
Right, right. So he was really a man of peace and a man of vision, and he was really brave to present to all the groups who came to Sha'ar HaNegev, even if their ideas were not similar to his. He was really brave to present this amazing vision of building this huge industrial park in the Erz crossing, in one of the crossings, to provide work for thousands of Palestinians from Gaza every day. He started really working on it, and I was really proud of him. And he was also a supporter of my work, and a very
Mhm.
true
Yes.
pluralist in terms of Jewish life and ideas.
Mhm.
So that's Sophia.
Yes.
Um, and now I'm showing you the map. I'm sure most of you know it already, but I do want to point out that wait, try to make it a little bigger. Am I succeeding? Can you see it a little bigger now? Okay.
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Yehudah, is it clear, the map? Okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
So,
Thank you.
okay. So, well, of course, this is the Gaza Strip, and what you see in purple right here is all the territory which terrorists on October 7th reached. So, see, they reached really far. Ofakim is really far, and they got even there. The area I work here is right here, and right opposite of the Gaza, like east of the Gaza city. So the kibbutzim I work with are on this area between Sderot and Netivot, maybe. And some of these 10 kibbutzim I work with are so close to the fence. You can see the one here that I'm pointing. Can you see it? It's Nachal Oz. It's less than 1 kilometer from the border of Gaza, and then Kfar Aza is right here. And Mefalsim, and this is the area I work with. And so some kibbutzim are really, really close. Some that are not even mentioned here are a little further from the border, but they're all, let's say, in the 7 kilometers
Mhm.
from the Gaza Strip. And of course, they have these differences. Like when you hear the alarm, so you measure it by how many seconds you have to get to the safe rooms. So
Right.
Nachal Oz has like I don't know, 2 seconds maybe, and further kibbutzim they'll be lucky because they have 15 seconds to run to the. So it's something like that. It's really maybe I'm
Mhm.
not being exact in the numbers, but
No, but we
the
get that
differences
certainly
between the
makes the
kibbutz.
point.
Yeah, so the
Yes.
point is that that there, even though it sounds to you not like a big difference, but they have this kind of contest
Yes.
between the kibbutzim, who has more and who has what, and
Right.
all of that. So that's the area.
Yes.
Um, and I can tell you that when I started working there, I learned that people of those kibbutzim, they had this saying like 95% of the time we live in heaven because you saw how beautiful it is with the fields
Yes.
and the green and the flowers and everything. And 500 hell, 5%
5%.
hell, excuse me,
5%. Yes.
and 5% and but 95% heaven is like really people love this area. And
Mhm.
after the previous war on 2014, which was called
Mhm.
Sukkot Itan, previous
Yes.
big war, because every 2 years
Right.
there's some kind
Because
of
right, because there were these regular.
right. But the big war, the last big war was on
Mhm.
2014,
Mhm.
and many young families with children mainly left the kibbutzim, and there was a big crisis. But after that, they really איך אומרים, יהודה, התאוששו, like
They sort of they revived
recovered.
themselves, recovered. And
Exactly.
you
And
and you start you,
yeah,
you started about
when I
5
started
years
working,
ago.
I was told that there are waiting lists to live in those kibbutzim. There's not enough houses for all the people who want to live there. So
Mhm.
it was really demographically growing all the time. And, so the
Mhm.
95%
And
heaven.
so I mean just when you arrived there, were you the first rabbi of these communities or had they
No, there was
had
a rabbi
because
before.
oh,
Her
so
name was
and so
Yael
what?
as
Yeah, if
well.
you could speak. I mean, we do want to talk about. Sadly, get to October 7th, but we do really want to hear a little bit about what spiritual and religious life is like in these ostensibly secular kibbutzim.
Great. So thank you, Yehudah, for bringing me back. I want to go back to the years before the October 7th, and I'm just going to show you a few pictures because I think it's it tells the story, right? So in those kibbutzim, um, the ceremonies that I was, you know what? I'm gonna stop the sharing for a minute just to tell you, because
Right.
I told you about my secular background. I think it was really easy for me to come into the region with very secular kibbutzim because I could really understand the residents. The Israeli residents of the kibbutzim, the secular kibbutzim, because there's no separation of religion and state in Israel, and because there's no freedom of religion for Jews in Israel, unbelievably, but that's the situation. So, for example, we don't have civil marriage. You cannot choose many of the ways you want to express your Jewish identity because it's imposed on you by the Orthodox stream. So the secular Jews are, some of them, really afraid of everything
Right.
that has to do with
Right.
Judaism. They reject it really strongly because they're so afraid that it's going to be opposed on them in a way that is going to make them change their way of life, change their
Right.
values. And so they're very suspicious about everything that smells
And
like
so
Judaism.
and so and so beyond its being sort of like non-coercive and certainly not institutional, not sponsored by the state, again, briefly, sort of like what's the character of the sort of religious and spiritual life that
So,
that
so
we've
what I
had
was
there
going to say
before
is
all of this? Yes.
that I understood really quickly that if I want to win the trust of the people, I have to work from within the kibbutzim. I'm not coming from outside saying, oh, I have the light, come and listen to me and come to me, but rather I go and meet them where they are, physically where they are, because I don't have a synagogue that people come to.
Well, that's
I
interesting.
go from one kibbutz to another. I always use the symbol of the yellow gate. Every kibbutz has this yellow gate that opens and closes. Tragically, in October 7th, they were not stopping the attack. But when I want to do anything that has to do with Jewish life in a certain kibbutz, I need someone to open this yellow gate for me. So I need
Right.
cooperation from within the kibbutz. I need people that I know and that they trust me to cooperate with me. So the work is a lot about reaching out to them and coming to where they are, both geographically and mentally. So I don't try to oppose things. I don't tell them what they have to do and what they have to think. I
Right.
suggest, I offer, let's connect to
Right.
Jewish rituals. Let's use our tradition to enrich our spiritual
Right.
life, but it's not going to tell you what you have to
Right.
do. I'm not,
Right.
it's
It's
not going
just
to.
it's And so if you wouldn't mind getting, like, we could briefly just share some photos, I think, that which would give a very vivid sense of what things have. And then I
Okay,
think we're both a little scared of talking
because
about
it's not a
October 7th,
synagogue
but I'm
based,
afraid we'll need to.
because it's not a synagogue-based community,
Yes.
so some of the ceremonies are held in the kibbutz, some of
Mm-hmm.
them just outside, as you see here, on the grass
Mm-hmm.
with the trees around. This is a special Kabbalat Shabbat, a ceremony for Shabbat,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the kids that started to go to school, Kita Aleph, first grade. And
Mm-hmm.
so the mothers are holding the talit. I think those kids have never seen a talit in their lives before, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't really know what it means, but still it's like a chuppah made of this Jewish symbol, and they're standing
Mm-hmm.
under it, and we're blessing them and greeting them, and for starting to go to school and starting to read, and
Yes.
and people are sitting around and kids are playing around, and it's very informal and it's very kibbutz type. Sometimes the ceremony, the Kabbalot Shabbat, you see my musician here, we are just sitting in a members club of the kibbutz. So again, it's not a synagogue. We're sitting in a circle. We're all singing together. There's no bima. It's not a performance. It's more like a cooperative sharing experience of singing together, talking together. I'm not talking all the time. Other people are bringing their ideas and sharing their ideas. So it's and you can see grandmothers and children and parents and everybody sitting together.
Mm-hmm.
And each time it's in a different kibbutz. This is in Bruchai,
Right.
this is in Gevim, so different places. Here again, Ophir, Zichro Livracha, in Nachal Oz. That's the member club of Nachal Oz. We did a lot of activity there. Um, this is Rabbi Rick Jacobs, the
Yes.
head of the reform movement in the States.
Right.
He was visiting Nachal Oz. It was June, and we had a Pride Kabbalat Shabbat, and so he was holding this
Mm-hmm.
sign and giving a
Right. And the
drash
sign is
about it.
the biblical verse, love thy neighbor as thyself, on the pride flag.
And here you see the first lesbian couple getting married in Nahal Oz, and we again blessing them. And of course,
and also my sense,
all the
and my last question about this is that my sense is that also some of the texts that you use aren't just straight classic texts from the liturgy, right? What are some of
right.
the what are
So
some of
God
those?
forbid I should call the Kabbalat Shabbat a service or a tefillah or a prayer. God forbid. It's just a
Yes.
Kabbalat Shabbat. It's just it's more, it looks like more like a singing, like
Mm-hmm.
a public singing event.
Yes.
We use a lot of Hebrew literature, Hebrew modern songs that
Mm-hmm.
are from the tradition of the kibbutzim, because the kibbutzim did
Mm-hmm.
have Kabbalat Shabbat, but they really used a little bit of the traditional text and a
Right.
lot of the more
Right.
new creation of the Israeli building, the just building the state
Mm-hmm.
and writing a new poetry and new
Mm-hmm. And
songs,
so you're
and of course bar and bat
synthesizing that
mitzvahs.
with all of this, with the more traditional.
Right,
Now,
and the
as
and the
much
most
as
traditional
yes.
ceremonies I hold will be bar and bat mitzvah. So here you see on the right the first girl to go to have an aliyah Torah, bat mitzvah
Mm-hmm.
ceremony in one of the kibbutzim. It was not very common, and
Yes.
many other families. For
Mm-hmm.
them, it's a big thing that the mothers can stand next to their boys, and
Yes.
the egalitarian thing is something that
Well, it's
really
central.
is
Yeah.
central, and it's very surprising again, because some families have this idea that if you want to do something traditional, it has to be orthodox,
Right.
and then the mother
Right.
should be behind a fence and everything, and telling them no, you can actually stand there, you can get an aliyah Torah yourself.
So,
You see no kippas, so it's not a synagogue. This is in the in the
right.
in the
Right.
members
Yes.
club, reading Megillah
Um,
in
yeah.
Purim, and of
Yeah.
course the only time
Shofar.
where I do call it services is in high holidays. So this is
Mm-hmm.
after Yom Kippur.
Yes.
And the last thing I want to show you from the activity I
Ah,
had before is that an
when
important
was
part for
this?
me. Okay, I'll tell you. So, as you said, Yehudah, I'm also a peace activist and an interfaith, very active member of some interfaith associations in Israel. And as I started working in the south of Israel, I joined the south part of Israel interfaith group. And so this is in Kfar Aza, the kibbutz that was most severely damaged in this attack. It's in the members club, and I did Hanukkah candle lighting, interfaith candle lighting. And so there's a sheikh from Rahat, from a Bedouin city, and this is a priest from Beersheba, and this is a Muslim woman, very active also in the civil society in Israel, Radir Hani, her name. And so we light candles together, and each one of us was talking about the meaning of light or of miracle, of all the the motive of Hanukkah in his or her tradition. And some people, and a lot of people came from all the kibbutzim. They had dozens of people. Some of them approached me after and said they never actually heard a non-Jew speak before, because and this is something I know may be shocking for you, living
Mm-hmm.
as a Jewish minority
Right.
in a non-Jewish
Yes,
society
but
here in Israel. We, being the majority, people never get exposed except from service givers, right? But I'm talking about a deep conversation about our identity and our being a part of civil society together. People never get to hear a priest talking about Christianity, or a sheikh talking, or a Muslim woman talking about the
talking about
Islam.
Islam.
And so it was really, it's a very powerful event, and
Mm-hmm.
people from Kfar Aza that I go to visit now in
Yes.
the hotel where they evacuated remind me, say, remember we light Hanukkah candles together with those people. So interfaith activities is something I did a lot.
Yes.
Um, and now I'm
And
showing you, yeah,
yes,
okay.
please.
No, we can move on because this is from now.
Yes,
So
yeah, no, I'm afraid there's no
we don't
avoiding
have time.
October 7th. So Yael, where
Mm.
were you on October 7th, and how did that day unfold for you?
So October 7th was Shabbat, and it was Simchat Torah. It was a holiday. I was getting ready. You know what? I'm going to tell you a few minutes before October 7th. It was October
please.
3rd. On
Okay.
October 3rd, I don't have photos here, but I had this most lovely, amazing event in the regional senior club. The seniors of the kibbutzim are treated really, really with a lot of respect
Mhm.
attention in the kibbutzim. And also the region has this regional club. They come here there every morning. They have activities. I work a lot in that club. I teach their courses. I do ceremonies. They invite me in before every holiday to do something. And one day, one of the seniors that always comes to everything I do, he's 88 from one of the kibbutzim. And he turns to me and said, I never had a bar mitzvah because it was Independence War when he was 13. He was born in 1935, and I said, okay, so let's do it now. And so with his initiative, we published the fact that we're going to have a bar bat mitzvah ceremony to the seniors, to whoever
Mhm.
didn't have one or had one but wasn't
Yes.
satisfied with the one he had. And we said let's do it before Simchat Torah because it's we're celebrating the Torah. And so I had 6 seniors over
Yes.
80,
Right.
3 men and 3 women, celebrating their late bar and bat mitzvah in the senior
Yes.
club, and that was October 3rd. And then October 7th, I was getting ready to have a regular bar mitzvah for a 13-year-old boy from one of the moshavim in the area in the south. Um, and it was very special. He was learning to read Parashat Bereshit, the beginning of the
Mhm.
reading of the Torah. And it was supposed to be around noon, his ceremony. And so it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and 2 months we were studying and preparing, and everything was ready.
Right.
And
And also you don't live in the Negev, right? You live
right. So I don't live
right.
there. I have an hour commute to get to each one of these
Hmm.
places. But since it was noon, I said, fine, I don't have to get up very early. Get there. But 7 o'clock, my phone started ringing. I was still sleeping, but I hear the phone ringing, and I said, what's going on? And I see it's the mother of the bar mitzvah who's calling me. I said, I hope nothing happened to the boy or in the family. And so I pick up, and she asked me, do you know what's going on? And I said, no, what's going on? She said, there's a very uh, extreme rocket attack. Now, you
Hmm.
have to understand, people in this area are used to rocket attacks. They have them all the time.
So
They're
the very
used to
fact that
alarms.
she's calling you.
So at the beginning, I did not understand what was going on. And I told her,
Hmm.
okay, so there are a few rockets, you'll go into the shelters and it will be over
Right.
and we'll still, I didn't realize. And then she calls me again and said, no, you don't understand. Something else is going on here. It's a war. And so I open up, all the media, and
Yes, we all
from
did.
that minute on, I understood the situation. I have a little WhatsApp group with all the people who are more involved in my activity, that we are kind of, this kind of ועד, איך אומרים?
Yeah, sort of like a
Like a
council.
right, a
Right.
committee that helps me, that are my partners in
Hmm.
the activity. And there's starting to correspond, where is everyone? How are you? What's going on? And I think soon enough, like at 8 o'clock, it was clear already that it's not a regular rocket attack, and the rockets are nothing to worry about, because there are these terrorists in the kibbutzim themselves. Two of my kibbutzim, Kfar Aza and Nachal Oz, actually had terrorists going into the kibbutz and into the houses. The other kibbutzim, even the ones that are close to the fence, like Erez or Nir'am, managed to prevent the terrorists from coming in. They were fighting them and chasing them away from the kibbutz. But in all of the WhatsApp group of people from the area, people were just trying to find out who's where and what's going on, and writing information. And it was like that for the whole day long, because it was hours and hours and hours that the terrorists were in the kibbutz, walking from place, from house to house. People later on, when I met the people after they were evacuated from the kibbutzim, they were telling me that people were writing in the WhatsApp groups, crying for help, saying they're in my house, come here, save us, tell the police, tell the army. But it took the army hours to get there because the terrorists really prepared it well. So all the most of the army was not in the area, unfortunately. Uh, um, and the ones who were there, they were attacked even before, the people who were guarding the borders were attacked. And so hundreds of terrorists came in, maybe about 1,000, and it was a huge area, as you saw in the map, that was attacked. And some of the kibbutzim, they just had, Kfar Aza had hundreds of them inside the kibbutz, and they were going into the. I don't have to tell you the stories; you probably heard them. Uh, People were closing in the safe rooms, and because I don't live there, I was far away, so all the information I just got from people in
And
there.
yet people are calling you all day and WhatsApping you all day about this.
Oh, I was calling them, trying to locate them. Where are you? Are you okay? What was going on?
Mm-hmm.
And the day and the day after, and understanding, who was evacuated where. And from that time on,
Right. Yes.
um, from that time on, it's really the whole world changed for me and for them, of
Mm-hmm.
course, because it was really, the focus was shifting from week to week, but at the beginning was really just locating. I have about, I don't know, 100 and something people that I know really well in the area, and I, you know, uh, all day long calling, making contact. Where are you? How are you doing? And what was going on? And hearing and listening, trying to understand what they were going through. And then let's say the week after, started to visit them in the evacuation centers. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
kibbutzim were evacuated to other kibbutzim who has rooms that they can stay
Right.
in. Some of them were evacuated to hotels in the different cities of Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, in Herzliya, in other places. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody was shocked. Everybody was broken, and it was just collecting the pieces, trying to just be in touch with people. One of the experience people talk about all the time is that they feel abandoned, that they felt like no one was there. The state was not there. The army was not there. No one was there to help them. They were completely alone. The people who got murdered most first were the people of the what's called kitat konenut. It's like how would you
Like the
translate that?
local self, like the civilian patrols or the self-defense groups of these communities.
Exactly. Exactly. So they would be the ones to go out to protect. There's so many stories about the weapons and where they were and the policy of the kibbutz of who's holding weapon and who's not. But everything was like being smart after the event itself was chaotic, and people were defending themselves. People were defending themselves empty-handed. And the feeling was for them that they were abandoned. And this feeling went on later after they were evacuated.
Yes.
The feeling that the government is not there for them, and the civil
Right.
society is completely uh, doing amazing work in helping those people. Uh, it was shocking to see that when the army started to get itself together and fight, people were
Mm-hmm.
collecting food for soldiers and clothes for
Yes.
soldiers, and so nothing was functioning, nothing was
Right.
working as it should, because civilians
Mm-hmm.
had to collect food and to collect clothes and to send it to the
Mm-hmm.
evacuees and to send it to the soldiers. So it's unbelievable how
And
nothing
what
of the
you
government
know has
was
been
functioning.
has been functioning, and sort of, and what's your work as the rabbi for these communities been these last few
So
weeks?
so at the beginning, I was just trying to reach people, and you know what? Just listen. I felt like I know nothing. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. So all I did was listening to people, just absorbing, just trying to understand where they're at. And a little later on, I started organizing spiritual events, spiritual support. A lot of it was personal contacts, and just, the contacts I made through the first 5 years of my work enabled me to reach the people and to reach out and ask them how they're doing, and so on. And it took a little longer before I started, and I'll show you again the pictures, to also officiate ceremonies. So this is in the first week we had a Kabbalat Shabbat
Really?
in kibbutz in the north of Israel called Mizra, with the people who are
Where
evacuated
they've
from
been
kibbutz Gevim,
relocated.
relocated. So see, I'm here on the stage, and people, families, and kids, hundreds sitting outside in the kibbutz,
What were
and
you
it's
saying?
not winter yet.
What did that first week, just a few days, what did you tell them? What were you saying?
Um, a lot of singing, not a lot of talking, a lot of singing. People really wanted to, people were shocked at that stage. It's different now, but people, it was first week. People were completely, and I think just sitting together and singing together, I'll tell you, we even sang "We Shall Overcome," okay, translated to Hebrew, and just singing the regular Shabbat songs that they know from the kibbutz, and just being together, hugging, looking at each other. We were talking about how this community and community life and being together is making us stronger and is enabling us to kind of recover. We were saying prayers for the wounded. We were saying Kaddish for the murdered. We were saying prayers for the people abducted, kidnapped, right? To
Yes,
Gaza,
yes,
although we
yes.
didn't, it was really, really the beginning of just understanding the numbers and who's where, and some people we still didn't know where they are, they're missing. And so saying all these kind of prayers together, and there were people from the people who are misplaced or out of the place, and also people who are hosting them, and everybody was sitting together.
It's
It
a
was
challenge for
very
them too.
powerful. At some point, we had helicopters in the sky, like right above us, and one of the participants told me after that it reminded her like Leonard Cohen performing in front of soldiers in a war in the Yom Kippur
Right,
War in
in
73 war.
73.
And so
So
we
yeah,
were
yeah,
kind of
I
yeah.
see we have about 20 minutes left, and we do want to leave some time for questions, but so what have you been doing in the weeks since October 7th, and how has
Yeah, and
your
that's
work been
another. That's
fluctuating?
another Kabbalat Shabbat in one of the hotels when it's not in a kibbutz. It's a
Yes.
hotel in Herzliya, and so one of the kibbutzim. And and later on, we started getting delegations, solidarity delegations
All of that. Yes, all of those folks.
from all the Jewish world. This is one of them. And so I took many groups from Jewish communities around the world to meet the people of the kibbutzim. This is specifically in a place called Mishmar HaEmek. It's in the north, and the people of Nachal Oz are there. And the person who spoke with them, Amir Tibon, he's also a journalist.
Oh,
He
yeah, he's
told,
incredible.
yeah, he's from Nachal Oz. He told his story,
His
and
amazing
he
story.
told them,
Yes.
look, this visit was 50 days after October 7th. He told them, look, in these 50 days, Yael, the Reform rabbi, has already brought here like 4 or 5 delegations from the Reform movement around the world, and no government representative stepped foot to meet us and to
Right.
talk to us and to hear us. And this is a kibbutz who had 14 people murdered and 7 kidnapped. So it was really important. Not only it was important to me that the people from Jewish communities around the world will hear the residents themselves, not just me. They will hear the stories, and I told them, I'm here to listen and to try to see what I can do. And we should all listen to the residents. They know, I don't know, they know everything. And it was really important for me also for the residents of Shalom Negev to see that people care about them. Jewish people from around the world care about them, and
Maybe,
they
and
come
perhaps in light of what you said a few moments ago, because if they feel very abandoned by their government.
exactly. And
Now,
so that's it.
if so you've been involved in civil society work in Israel for a very long time. So
Yehudah,
what
just Yehudah, if I can just add one more
please, please,
sentence. Of
please.
course, I was jumping from the very beginning, the first week to the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
in the middle, of course, the hardest time was these 2 or 3 weeks of funerals and memorials, and there was
Yes.
so many. Some of them I officiated myself for the first time in my life. I officiated funerals for more than one person in one time. Like you have a few coffins, could be parents and children,
Mhm.
or a couple that were murdered together. And I can't even tell you, it's just so disturbing and so hard to kind of internalize what the experience. And um and some other funerals I just went to be there in the audience, even though if I didn't officiate. And then all these memorials, it was just day after day. Kfar Aza had like 10 funerals every day. They have 62 people murdered from one kibbutz. And
Mhm.
so that was intensity that you cannot imagine, of grief and mourning and pain. And only after the last memorial of the 30-day was over, we can start talking about the future and what was
Ah,
going on. And I just been to so many conversations with the people, debating with them within themselves. Are we going back to Shara Negev? Are we going to go back to live there or not? What are the solutions for the short term, for the long term? And these are discussions that I'm just participating in. But as
and
to your
that seems,
question,
and my understanding from things that we've talked about is that that's a crucial question now for these communities, and that entails so much, right? Them, their
and I assume
children,
that
security, where they want to live.
my work in the next year is going to be, to be with them in rebuilding the communities, because some of the communities are completely broken, and they have all these questions about how are we going to recover and rebuild the community, who's going to go back, who's not, and how is it
Mhm.
going to be built. And I think there's going to be a lot of work of just spiritual support to these processes that they're going to go through, very painful processes.
So,
So,
so you again,
sorry,
Sister, so you've
Yehudah,
been,
I'm going to interrupt. We got
please,
to go to questions. So
right.
first of all,
So
thank
I
you.
guess if I could make just sort of like one last general observation of yours, Yael, briefly before we head to folks' questions. So again, having been involved in Israeli civil society organizations for a long time, what does this tell you? What is enduring? What's changing? What future directions do you see?
So, as you said at the beginning, many of the people living in those kibbutzim were peace activists, still peace activists, maybe some of them, and belong to the more left-wing part of the political map in Israel. And some people told me very painfully after the event that they're not only in pain because of what happened to their friends and their family and everything, they're also in pain because they viewing what is happening to us as an Israeli society, the way that we went back, I don't know, so many steps back to some achievements maybe that we had before as a civil society, as a trying to let's remember where we were at minute before October 7th. We were demonstrating for democracy. We were struggling for democracy, the democratic values in Israel, and a lot of people were involved in these demonstrations and activities, and now it feels like we went back so many steps. I heard, as I told you, in funerals that either I officiated or I was just participated, I heard terrible things being said by people who are just normative people. They're not extreme right settlers or whatever,
When you
saying
say
calls to
terrible,
revenge.
what do you mean by
Uh,
terrible? If
like
I may.
a kid his father is being buried, and he tells him, "Don't worry, Dad, we're going to erase Gaza Strip for you." And so a lot of calls for revenge. And you can't judge people in their deep pain and grief, but the revenge was a very central um feeling that people expressed. Not all of them, but and we had other voices heard from people who lost their dear ones, a person who lost his two parents, or my friend from Kfar Aza who lost her son, and they said, "No, don't make revenge on our name. We are not we don't think the war is
Yes.
going to solve it.
Right.
Please stop the war. Please don't revenge in our name. Please don't use our grief to justify the killing of innocent people in Gaza." So I heard both sides, but it's very extreme, and I think the Israeli society is unfortunately was moving more to the nationalist feelings and sentiment
hence those democracies.
military based ideas and ideology and identity, and that hurts.
Right. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Shana Weiss, who's
First of all,
been
thank you
running
so much. And actually, that last conversation actually hit on a couple of the questions that came in, which is sort of where are people's political thoughts right now? And as you sort of explained, they've been in different places, right? So I have, many questions that are coming in. Please continue to send them in. I'll obviously get to as many as I can. You mentioned the, sort of the visits from reform delegations from all over the world. And I was wondering, the relationship between Jews in Israel and Jewish diaspora is always a complicated one. So given, what have you seen in these past, almost 8 weeks today? And, especially with a rise in global anti-Semitism, like what are your congregants? I know you're not your congregants, for lack of a better term, like what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's that sense like?
Well, I think the people that in my community are not really bothered by what happens to Jews in diaspora right now. It's not polite to say, but they're really, really, in their hard experiences and grief, and so I think they don't give a lot of attention. Maybe they hear about it in the press, but I think they're really busy in their own problems right now. But I do see that the people coming from Europe or the States to Israel to visit those communities, carrying with them the fear of what's going on with Jewish communities around the world, and for them, hearing evidence from people who experience October 7th is like helping them to grasp reality in a more accurate way, because people say that the press is not showing the whole picture and is never giving like the complex picture of life in Israel right now. And so they were interested in hearing the evidence from the people themselves, so they can go back and say, you are not being told the whole story. Here's the story of what happened to Jewish people in Israel and all of that. But again, I think that because the situation is so complicated, and so people who still seek peace in Israel, who think the war is not a solution and this should be another solution, a political solution, are calling Jews around the world saying, help us, because we cannot solve this ourselves. Apparently, we tried every single time. We think that this round is gonna, is gonna solve everything, and we're gonna have quiet, and it's not happening. And so we need some other forces, moderate forces coming in, helping us, to kind of negotiate. I'm really, worried now for the day after the war. What is it going to look like? What is Israel going to look like? And I think that, the shared worry that we have, people in the States or in the world, and Jews of Israel, is what is the face of the state of Israel is going to look like after the war is over. And I hope it's over soon. But, and it's also a question, are we going to bring back all the hostages or not? People saying, this is going to determine how we are going to look at the state, and what's the image of the state for us, whether it's going to bring back the people or not. But people are really worried, and I think this is a common worry for us here and in diaspora. What kind of state are we going to have? What kind of Jewish and democratic state we're going to have after this? And very hard question to answer.
Yeah, so you mentioned something that I actually wanted to ask about, and that's about hostages, right? Thank
Sorry, I
God
didn't hear you.
about hostages, right? We know that some of the hostages have been returned, some obviously have not been. Often it splits families, right? And obviously, without getting into privacy issues or any one particular situation, I wanted to ask you, what has that been like? Have you been able to provide spiritual care? So sitting from the
Mhm.
States, what are things we might not realize about what happens after a hostage family member is returned?
I didn't have a chance to hear a lot from families who has hostages that came back, but I did. I forgot to mention that a lot of the work that I did in the last 2 months was in, there's now it's called the Hostages Square. It's in Tel Aviv, and there's a big it's and every day and every evening there a lot of people coming there and supporting the hostages' families. And also, I was there conducting Kabbalot Shabbat in the square, like very spontaneous singing and blessing and prayers and uh, supporting the families who still have hostages, and also bring the Jewish value, like the Rambam says, that the first and above all commandments, about all mitzvah, is the one to bring back the people that are hostages, and to bring the Jewish voice saying this value is now more important than anything else. In my personal opinion, I think everything should stop until we bring back, until the very last person. This is the first priority, moral, Jewish moral, universal moral, whatever, should be the first priority. I don't understand. I don't understand how it didn't happen yet. I mean, it's 2 months, and I hear in the news the government is saying, "Oh, we need another month to be able to do another deal with the Hamas," and I'm saying people are going to be dead in a month. It's not, we cannot do that. We have obligation, moral obligation, human and Jewish and everything you want. Okay, I think everything should stop until we take care of this issue. It's my
So we have time for one more question. And you have talked about some of your interfaith work in Israel, and of course, we know that Hamas sees this as a sort of holy war, right? So I wanted to ask you, given your role as a religious leader, have you been able to have contact with any of your Christian and Muslim colleagues in the South? You already spoke
Yes,
about,
yes, yes. We are next
yeah.
week. We are having a Hanukkah interfaith event in the Bedouin city of Rahat. I'm continuing. We are continuing. I think we have a huge challenge because a lot of people blame religion for every bad thing that happens on both sides. It's like the extreme religious people who are to be blamed for the wars and for the violence and for racism and for everything that is going on. And I think we have a liberal I don't know if you can say liberal about Muslims, but people who are moderate and who we have a role, and it's very challenging in these times, but to keep saying and to insist that religion could be the solution and not the problem. It could be a part of solution because our religions teach us all the same thing. Every human being is created in the image of God. And if all religions believe in that, and we can work together, to show that our religion and our traditions are teaching us to respect and to be human and to see the humanity of other people. And it's very hard, because it's true that a lot of the violence is, people think, at least, I'm not sure it's true, but is being motivated by extreme religious ideas, but or misinterpretive, religion ideas. But I think that for us, we are not going to give up. We are going to continue to say it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We can use our traditions to do good and not to do bad, and to live with the other and see God in the face of the other, like we read last week's portion.
So thank you, Yael, for ending with words of Torah. Rabbi Vurgan, you've been amazing. Thank you for helping us understand what it's like to be part of the mourning process for these communities. I know that there were questions about interest in possibly donating money or supporting this work. We will send out links with the recording for those who are interested. I also want to thank all of you for attending and invite you to come to our final session in the series about Israel and civil society, where next week we will be hearing from Mohammed Darwashe, who is an incredible activist and been involved in interfaith and community efforts between Jewish Israelis and Arab Israelis, Israeli Palestinians, and we'll be hearing about what's been happening in the Israeli Palestinian community. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Mung Chi, and we will see you next week. Thank you.